So taking a leaf out of Peter's book, what I'm going to do is show you in this video how you can create the object in multiple components so that they can be textured in Bryce separately, because I just showed you how to make the basic shape in the last video. So to begin, it's very similar. Create a cylinder, but I'm going to do it with 12 sections instead of 16, which will make the gap rather larger. Not too much, but a little bit larger. Switch to vertex mode and select these vertexes so we can create a slot through the cylinder. C to connect those, space to deselect, go to the underside and select the corresponding 4. C to connect those, space to deselect, go to edge mode, select one of these little edges, G for edge loop, switch to face mode, hit delete. So that gives us our slot. Space to deselect everything, go to edge mode, select a couple of upright edges, G for edge loop, right click and cut, and I'm going to use 17. So because I'd reduce the number of sides, so I might as well do that way. C to connect all those vertices together, plus to extend the selection, right click, deform, twist, y-axis, tab, 540 degrees, OK. Now the somewhat tricky bit is to bend this, so right click and bend, select the face just to the left of one of the axes points there, so you can find it again. And then right click to confirm that selection. Now select the two top faces, so that highlights the end of the rod. Right click to confirm that selection, and then go back and highlight the face again that you started with. That gives a normal. Right click and then tab 180 degrees. OK. Select the entire object, right click and select options for weld and use a tolerance of 0.1 because the default tolerance doesn't weld the faces. OK. Check that you can see that the verts have highlighted themselves red to indicate the weld was successful. Space to deselect, edge mode, select these two outer edges, L for loop, right click, hardness, hard. These will now light up orange. At this point you can select the entire object and hit S for smooth a couple of times. Space to deselect. Now we can start breaking the model up into parts. So what I'm going to do is select this line that crosses on the inner edge, use G and switch to face mode. And I think at this point it's possible to select and store selection, because I'll use that selection again. Right click and shell extrude normal, and we'll go for tab 0.1. So that's why I'll have to get, in fact I'll go for 0.05 so I don't make the gap too narrow. OK. So let's see, there is a little bit of collision on the inside edges just there. So space, and I'm going to select these edges, L for loop, and then use the bevel command to bevel it back to try and reduce the collision there. So that should be OK. That's enough. Right, space to deselect that. Because it was shell extruded, it's generated another object. I'm going to hide the new object, go back to face mode, select and recall selection, and then intrude those faces. I'll go for tab 0.05. That's OK. So that's going to be my outer surface. So I could select this, go to face mode, right click on material and call this glass. Okay, so that will make it compatible with things like Octane, though for Bryce it just needs to be separate and split into separate components. I'll hide that new one, bring back the old one, select the entire object, go to face mode, right click, and I'll call this material, right click, inner. Okay. Okay, so they're appearing in the outline here. I thought I could do another little detail, because it's got, if you see when it's got this just inner surface, it's got these hollows of the running around inside, and I thought it'd be nice if I select one of these loops on the inside, press L for loop, right click and bevel. It'll only bevel a little bit, but I can shell extrude from this, tab 0.6, it shouldn't come out of the surface, go OK, and then space to deselect, do an edge. I'll hide this other shape now, okay, and go L for loop, G, right click, circularize, factor of 1, so that's the default state. So that's turned it into a continuous strip that goes all the way through the inside. If I now press C to connect, it'll break those faces up into more or less squares. Go to face mode, right click and inset those. Let's see, tab 0.02. There's probably some collision occurring in this middle, but I think we'll get away with that. Okay, and then I'm going to intrude that, or same value, tab 0.02. Okay, so what this is going to give me, I'll select the entire thing, basically call it material DNA. Looks a bit like a DNA strand. So like geometric DNA that I'm going to fit inside my shape underneath a transparent cover. So this outer cover here will be transparent, so I could use W to put wireframe mode, and then you'll be able to glimpse this rigid section, which in Bryce or Octane, however I decide to render it, I will not smooth. So these other two sections will be smoothed, and that won't be, so it'll look more geometric, and hopefully be able to see it underneath the glass cover inside the shape. So that's the way of creating this shape and multiple components, and name the materials so that it'll work in other applications. You can even name things in the geometry graph if you want to do that. You just right click on it and rename the highlighted one. I'm not going to go that far. So file, export, wavefront object, and call this my shape. There we go. So that's the end of the video. Hope you found that interesting and useful, and that you'll have a go at creating a shape like this in Wings 3D. Cheers now.